Hi everyone, my name is William Willner and I'm running for place 6 on City Council in Manor this November. I'm making this video just to tell you all a little bit about myself, let you know who I am. I'm one of 7 kids born to missionary parents. 2 of my siblings were actually born in Africa, and my parents have been missionaries there for, well, in my dad's case, coming up on 60 years now. My dad is one of the few people I know who served in both the Canadian and U.S. armies during Vietnam. Canadian because he was a patriot and he's Canadian. So, and then he came down to the States for school afterward, met my mom who was an artist and a beauty queen, fell in love with her, and as things were getting to a very messy end in Vietnam, they were desperate for candidates. They gave my dad a choice of either doing another tour for the U.S. or heading back to Canada. He was already head over heels for my mom, and so I guess you could say he chose love and war. Anyways, that's how I came to be here. As I mentioned, we grew up in Africa. This was at a time when we were in what was then called Zaire. It's now called the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it was an insanely dangerous place. It was, I'm not going to lie, a very, very difficult, sometimes brutal childhood. But at the same time, community was everything. It's all that we had. Every single night we sat around cooking fires if it wasn't raining, and our entertainment was telling stories. We didn't have radio, didn't have TV, we often didn't have running water or electricity. And it's a very, very far cry from our circumstances here now. After Africa, I didn't actually finish high school, but I got a full ride to college based on some exams to find out where I would rank after homeschooling in Africa for all those years. But I didn't finish college either. Instead, I got bored, left, and went straight to work. I've done a lot of different jobs over the years. I've worked in the public sector and the private sector. I've done everything from sweeping parking lots when I had gaps on my resume that I wasn't allowed to explain or give any information about, all the way up to doing Fortune 500 consulting. I've been an actor, producer, but I also hold a couple of technology patents. I help to invent downloadable legal software wizards. I know what it's like to be a self-made millionaire, and I also know what it's like to be injured so badly that I almost died several times. And a couple of times actually was pronounced dead and came back from critical injuries and even comas. I speak 2 languages fluently, almost 3, and parts of 3 more. I've started successful companies in Canada, the US, and in Central America as well. And this sort of brings me to the question of, why would you want me to be on City Council? Well, at one point I asked my dad why he had 7 kids in Africa, where all of us almost died at least once, and some of us more than once. And he said that, you don't have meaning in your life unless you're doing something to make the world a better place. Now, at the time, I was a teenager. I was very frustrated with our circumstances, and I kind of brushed that off. But my mom had a better saying, and it was, William, you give up the right to complain if you don't do something to make the situation better. And that's simply what I'm offering to do. Now, in terms of why me, well, I think we need a breadth of diversity of experience on City Council. Just when we moved here 3 years ago, this was a much different place then, even just 3 short years ago, than it is today. And it's only going to keep exploding. The boom is not going to slow down. It's going to ramp up. And, maybe in the past, the best way to run a quiet little town was to have everybody on City Council who all thought the same way, who all had similarities in their experience. And, there was one way of doing things and everybody needed to be on board with that. Well, I don't think so. I mean, there's certainly value to that, but it's like leaving half of the colors out of your crayon box. If you've got 7 artists in a room, but they only paint in, let's say, green and red, well, you might end up with some great art, but you're going to miss a lot. Same thing if you're trying to build a house and you've got a dozen super talented tradespeople, but every one of them's an electrician. I mean, some of them may know something about plumbing or about some of the other trades, and you may get a house built, but it's not going to be a heck of a house. You need to have people who have different backgrounds, and you need to have people who understand a lot about a lot of different things as well. And that's who I am. We need different points of view, not the same. My first business mentor once told me, he said, if everybody on your sales team thinks exactly the same way, then most of you aren't necessary. And I've got a little example here about point of view that I'm going to use to try and make my point. So have you ever asked yourself why it is that mirrors reflect things from side to side but not upside down? The answer is actually going to surprise a lot of people, and that answer is that the question is wrong. Mirrors don't actually flip anything. Now, I know some folks watching this will be like, William, you're crazy. I've stood in front of an ambulance, I looked at the lettering on the front, and it said Ignabula or whatever. It did not say ambulance. It was printed backwards, obviously because mirrors flip things, right? Wrong. Mirrors don't flip anything, and I'm going to prove it to you. So let's say here that we've got a point of view, a POV. Okay, we'll call it my POV. Right? There's my little face. All right. Now, look at what's going on in the mirror. Says POV. Says POV. See that? POV. POV. Nothing's changed, right? Not until I turn it. Now all of a sudden it's backwards, right? Now it says VOP, right? It says VOP here, and it says VOP here. But what actually changed? I changed. I turned my point of view around. The mirror didn't turn anything around. Here, I'll make this even a little bit more dramatic. Got a little piece of painter's tape here. You put this on this corner. Okay, so here we are now. Got my point of view. This painter's tape here is on my left, your right. And I'm going to turn it. What do we got? Now, the tape is on my right, your left. Now it says VOP. Now it says VOP, right? But what turned it? I turned it. It was me. The mirror didn't do anything. And I can even, let's jump back to that original question of, hey, why doesn't the mirror flip things from top to bottom instead of just left to right? Well, if this is the POV of a gymnast, which I very much am not, then, and that gymnast were to decide to do a back bridge to look in a mirror, then it would be upside down, right? Here, it would be upside down. Tape is still on my left, your right, and it still says POV. Still says POV. It hasn't been flipped left to right. It's only been flipped top to bottom. That's because the gymnast flipped over backwards, right? That's because I turned around. Mirror never did a thing. Now, for somebody else that's watching this from outside of the frame, watching what's going on here, the interaction between me and the mirror, it'd be obvious that I'm the one that's changing, right? I'm the one that's changing the point of view. The mirror's not doing anything at all, right? I'm turning around. I'm turning, right? I'm flipping over backwards. The mirror is doing absolutely nothing. You know, and I share that, you know, I know it's kind of maybe a little bit of a funny, sort of campy way to try and make a point, but, you know, we've got to get back to being willing to admit that we don't know everything. And we've also got to get to the point where we can accept the fact that our point of view may be backward. It's the only way that we can get past our egos and actually work together as a team to make things better for everybody. You know, I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be injured and dependent on help from others. I also know what it's like to be a self-made millionaire. You know, I'm familiar with all levels of, you know, the socioeconomic scale, other than obviously mega rich, etc. But more importantly, I've spent my life in countries all over the world, interacting with all different kinds of cultures and seeing things from a multitude of perspectives. And, you know, companies used to pay me $1,000 a day to go in and look at their situations and present them with perspectives that they had never considered before. And I'm not offering the city a chance to hire me as a consultant. I'm not interested in that. I'm quite happy with my current circumstances. But what I am offering is my 50 plus years of different perspectives, of looking at all of these different situations differently and coming up with unique and original answers to solve problems. And that's what we need right now, with the whole world seemingly looking at this area, and with the incredible influx of people that are coming in companies We're going to need different solutions. We can't just have the same old, same old. So that's what I'm offering. I'm going to be publishing some more videos here in the upcoming days, with some specific examples to how to different takes on certain problems. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. I look forward to serving you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.